After the game in Paris, see, I imagine it's not only big in France, but we've seen it worldwide.
Yeah, huge story. Obviously, the Rennes fan who took the video and created the whole incident. Before that, had been insulting a few of the PSG players going up the stairs. And obviously, then there's the incident with Neymar. Neymar said that he shouldn't have reacted that way, but that the other guy insulted him. The other guy saying that he didn't insult him at all. He just told him that he was bad, that PSG was bad on the night. There's also, he pretends that he wants a selfie with Neymar and then pulls out the selfie, and Neymar is frustrated. But once again, it's Neymar making headlines for the wrong reasons, although he was good during the game, considering he hadn't played pretty much at all, apart from one half against Monaco last weekend, since his injury at the end of February. But right now, we're only looking at what happened after the game and that incident once again with him, and not so much what happened on the pitch with him.
Well, you've got to throw some sort of heavy punishment at him for that, because...
Right. You don't have any empathy? You both lost cup finals, so you got any empathy?
No, I don't care if it's a cup final or friendly.
None at all.
I don't care if you're playing for your local pub. Listen, he'll tell you the same. You get insulted... I'm not saying it's right, by the way, but you get insulted every time you step on the field. Right? I can tell you that for sure.
Yep.
And the language is non-repeatable. Mm-hmm. And it can be personal. And it can be rude. And it generally is, and it's always over the top, always. However, like Eric Cantona with the kung fu kick, wasn't as big a dive as that. You know, he dove into the crowd, but it was a punch. It was a little flick out, and you can't do that. You can't do that.
We all know that. Like there's not a handbook that says you can't attack fans, but we all know as players and supposed professionals that if there's one thing you can't do. Yeah. You can't go anywhere near it. You have to just ignore it and get on with it. And as Craig said, I'm with him. I'm not saying it's right, but it's part of the job. It comes with the territory. And if you can't handle it, you're going to be in trouble. And he should be in trouble.
Jules, what sort of punishment are they talking about in France for this?
So probably a suspension for Neymar's action, maybe a fine as well. PSG are yet to react on what also they could do to Neymar, because they could also punish him in a way for not having the right attitude in a game like that. He's their player, so they could also do something, but we haven't heard anything yet. But it could be quite hefty. Only a few days after Neymar was banned for the next 3 Champions League matches for his outburst on social media towards the referee after the PSG Manchester United game, where he was injured and only in the stands as well. Sorry. So back to back, probably heavy bans for Neymar, both domestically and also in Europe.
What's the feeling amongst the fans, Jules, regarding Neymar? Have they kind of reached a limit?
It's hard to tell right now, because, like I said, he's only just come back. He was pretty good in that cup final. He was good as well against Monaco, the previous game. And prior to the injury in February, it looked like he had changed a little bit his attitude. That we were not seeing all the sort of disrespectful attitude that we saw in his first season in France, not respecting the opposition, not respecting his own teammate, and even with the club as well. So it looked like after the World Cup, he sort of changed a bit, and that he had finally realized that everything that he was doing, all the antics on the field and off the field, were all wrong, and that he had sort of matured a bit and grown up a little bit. And yet, last night was another disgrace, and that was very much the old Neymar, not so much the one that we'd seen earlier in the season. But that was not acceptable again.
And again, we saw him rolling around.
When are we going to start talking about this guy about being a football player? We're talking about his Oscar-winning performance.
So reckless as well, and maybe it's the frustration that he had missed a couple of chances to win the game for PSG before, like he has done in big games before this season, especially the second leg against Manchester United. And he will have to learn how to control his emotions, how to control his frustration. Because if at 20 you're capable of things like this, when you're, like you said, so praised by the whole world, so talented clearly, and you still lose your nerves in the way that he did on Saturday night. But also, like we said, a few times already in his career, it's not looking good for the rest of your career if you can't control those kind of emotions.
What got me was, and I have to laugh, his reaction.
Yeah.
His reaction is absolute prize money, because somebody's going to have to send him a video of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in this game, because he thought he'd done nothing wrong. I mean, I tell you that it wasn't a bad challenge. Yeah. It was a terrible challenge. Where he caught that opposition player could easily have resulted, because his leg was planted, and once the studs are in the grass, there's nowhere for it to go, and where he caught him in the knee, that could have been a cruciate gone easy.
Is this where experienced players, managers need to take them aside? Is it just a folly of youth, or how do you deal with this?
Absolutely, 100%. That's what needs to happen. But you know what? He's not going to get that at PSG. Nobody's been able to do it with Neymar. So how are they going to do it with Mbappe? He's got nobody in the team who's going to take him aside and sit him down and say, look, you're young, we all make mistakes, the rest of it. Because clearly nobody's done it with Neymar. So why would they do it with Mbappe?
Let's talk about the coach now, shall we? We had a lot of tweets in for extra time. I thought I'd just pick one here. Should Tuchel get the sack for only winning one trophy for PSG this season, Jules?
It's the big question. I think there's something fundamentally wrong at the club right now. It's a big mess. Some of it is probably Tuchel's fault. And I thought yesterday, his coaching on Saturday night, his coaching once again was poor. He took far too long to react to Rennes coming back into that game when PSG had it under control, a bit like he did against United in the second leg at the Parc des Princes. So of course he will have some responsibility in the bad form in the last 2.5 months. But I don't think he's the only one. I think there's a problem with the chairman, Nasser El-Khelaifi, who should go. I think there's a problem with the sporting director, Antero Henrique, who should go as well. I think there's a problem in that dressing room between some of the players. There are clans in that dressing room. Neymar having a go at the younger players didn't help. I think to just go back on what Stevie just said, I think Gigi Buffon, for example, tried to speak to Mbappe earlier in the season after his red card at Nîmes, after the incident that he had in Marseille, where he was dropped onto the bench because he was late to the team meeting before the game. And even Gigi Buffon clearly doesn't seem to have any sort of impact on the way Kylian Mbappe is playing or is behaving, because the goals are great, but there's a lot of mistakes that Kylian Mbappe has made this season. And there's a problem in the mentality of that dressing room, of the players. I think psychologically there's clearly something wrong. And also, you cannot take things for granted in football, not even in France, not even in Ligue 1 if you're PSG. You can't go into a game like this and go 2-0 up after 25 minutes and think this is going to be easy now, we're going to walk over them, because then it goes back to haunt you. And that's exactly what happened last night. This team and this club have taken too many things for granted in the last few seasons and not working hard enough to make sure that they were in control and improving year after year.
There's no control from the top, is there? I think Tuchel should get another year. I think he probably, well, I don't know if he will, but I think he should at least try and sort it out. But you've got the chairman not shaking Ben Arfa's hand. OK, I'm sure there's a backstory, but still, it still lacks in class. You've got the sporting director who got a big fallout with Rabiot, right? And I'm sure there was a backstory there, and Rabiot wasn't innocent in the whole thing. But that didn't show the club in a good light. Oh, and by the way, you missed his skills in the middle of the park at a key point in the season when they had injuries in that position. And then you add in all the histrionics from Neymar that we've talked about for 24 months, and it goes back to what Jules is saying, is that it's not just the management. However, it's usually the buck stops with the manager. I personally think he'll get another 12 months. But in 12 months' time, Thomas Tuchel's maybe just as well out of that club if it still stays the way it is.
It's a mess, Stephen.
Yeah. The Ben Arfa thing, I'm not surprised. Everywhere he's been, he's had problems with everybody.
Right.
Directors, players, managers, coaches, staff, you name it.
But you're the owner of that. You're the owner of that. You're the chairman owner of that club. You got to rise above that.
No, I don't.
No, you rise above that.
No, I don't think so. Listen,
what's the backstory there, Jules?
Just that he was frozen out for the last 18 months of his contract in PSG. It was a nightmare for him. They didn't want him to play. They didn't want him to train with the first team. They wanted him to go, but he didn't want to go because he wanted all his money. So he stayed on purpose to get all his money and all the wages when he was not playing, not training with the first team. And that's how they clashed. But, I think, I'm not sure if Ben Arfa's attitude is really is full of class, because he criticised the club and things like that. But certainly Nasser Al Khelaifi's attitude is not class either.
But that's classic bully boy tactics here from ownership. You need to leave. We don't want you anymore. Oh, and by the way, we don't want you to sit here and take all your money. So go somewhere else and earn 50% of that money.
Yeah.
And then when a player doesn't do it, and okay, I'm sure there was one or two other things. You're not. I mean, Steve,
I'm absolutely sure there is. Can you believe it? Can you imagine somebody slaughtering you? Or me, I'd be the same by it. If somebody slaughters me, and then 12 months later they're coming up giving it all that after they've just beat you, because he's giving it ha. I'll tell you what, I have no problem with a guy shaking his hand, because I wouldn't.
Let's remind you, though, PSG are, of course, champions of France domestically. Despite that cup defeat, they won the league and won it an absolute canter.